Good morning everyone. Welcome back to Social Studies of 10th class. So today we are starting the 15th lesson, National Liberation Movements in the Colonies, and out of that we are discussing three colonies: China, Vietnam and Nigeria. So among the three, first one is China. Okay, so about China, or the Chinese liberation movement, can be divided into two phases. And the first phase, it was done through Sun Yat-sen, as he was able to establish the republic. And the second phase is the work of Chinese Communist Party. So today in this class we will be discussing the first phase of national liberation movement in China. That means the role of Kuomintang Party and Sun Yat-sen. Okay, so before moving into the role of Sun Yat-sen and his political party of Kuomintang, we need to know what was the social and political background of China by the 20th century. In the beginning of 20th century, China was ruled by a royal family of Manchu dynasty. Even though it was an independent kingdom under the Manchu dynasty, the Manchu dynasty were not free, as they were under the influence of British powers. Or the British, they controlled the Manchu dynasty in order to get all the possible concessions for them to have a free trade or to exploit and plunder China as the British plundered and exploited India. Okay, so by influencing the Manchu dynasty, they just created certain spheres of influence where the social and political and economic concessions were given to them. This in the spheres of influence, the foreign people or the foreign nationals, they were exempted from all sorts of Chinese legal systems. So in short, we can say that the Manchu dynasty was not able to protect the interest of the Chinese. So automatically the Chinese people, they started revolting against the incompetent Manchu dynasty. And in 1911, the ever-allied Sun Yat-sen, who is considered to be the founder of modern China, he was able to organize the people and he was able to overthrow the Manchu dynasty, and he brought an end to the dynastic rules. And instead of dynastic rule, he established a kind of republican form of government. Okay, so that was a big development for the national liberation movement of China. Sun Yat-sen establishing republic in the year 1911. And he came from a very poor family, and he got educated through Christian missionary schools, where he came into contact with the ideas of socialism and democracy and the freedom or liberty. And he was by profession, he was a medical expert, a doctor, but he was moved by the miseries and the sufferings of the Chinese people. So he studied about the problems of China, and he identified the problems of China, and he organized, or he devised a plan of action. And that plan of action had three major principles. Okay, so he started to establish a government based on three principles, a program of action based on three principles by Sun Yat-sen. They were San, Min, Chui. San, Min, Chui. So San means nationalism, establishing a kind of spirit towards the people, in the people towards the development of a nation, nationalism. Then comes Min, stands for democracy, overthrowing the Manchu dynasty and establishing a people's government. And the third one is Chui, stands for socialism, where the people are treated equal. So by establishing a democracy, he was able to bring the first two Sun and Min into action. But the third one, socialism was not fully implemented. He was not able to implement that socialism fully in China, because the social setup of China at the center established a republican form of government under Sun Yat-sen, but when that disintegration is coming towards the local level, the areas were under the control of powerful people called warlords. So they were not ready to give their control over the people to democratically elected governments. Still, they hold the people under their control. So socialism was not fully acquired, or it was not a success under Sun Yat-sen. So anyway, he established the government, or he tried to establish a new society in China based on three principles of Sun, Min and Chui. Okay, even after establishing a government by Sun Yat-sen, the situation did not develop as much as the people expected. So by the time, as we know, another world event happens, the First World War, and China was forced to participate in the First World War along with Britain, expecting something from Britain after the war. So in 1919, as we know, that the war ended with the Treaty of Versailles. But the Treaty of Versailles provided nothing to China. Even the Chinese territories which were captured by Japan was not returned to China through Treaty of Versailles. So people started fighting against that injustice. On May 4th, 1919, a great gathering of the people, they started a revolution against the injustices to the Chinese by the Treaty of Versailles. And that is known in the history as May 4th Revolution. And the May 4th Revolution, it has taken to another form, or not just, even though the revolution was organized only to fight against or only to oppose the injustices of Treaty of Versailles, with the mass appeal or the mass participation, they started demanding something more. They started demanding to save China through modernization, social modernization, economic modernization and political modernization. And they demanded for certain social evils. To say that in China, the Chinese society, they were bound with a lot of what to call this blind beliefs. One social evil where the people experienced was food binding, especially the girl children. They were forced to bind their food in their young age itself. Even before they attain 10 years, their food will be bound in a shoe, and it will be tied well. And it will be opening after many years, maybe after 18 years or something, so that the food will never grow. It remains small. So we know what happens when the food is not in the size of our body. We will not be able to stand straight or in a way of balancing. When we are not able to balance ourselves, our movement will be shortened. So it was such a situation was there. And they started demanding equality in marriages. That we will see when it comes to the second level, with the establishment of Chinese Communist Party, we will see what is meant by equality in marriages. So anyway, this kind of demands were there, and that was part of a revolution. And after this revolution, two political parties were established in China: Kuomintang Party and Chinese Communist Party. Kuomintang Party, it was established as per the guidelines, as per the policies of Sun Yat-sen. Okay, Kuomintang Party or KMT. In your textbook it is written as KMT, Kuomintang Party, and ZZP or Chinese Communist Party. So Sun Yat-sen, it was through his ideas or through his policies that Kuomintang Party established. And as a political party, before establishing the Kuomintang Party, Sun Yat-sen was ruling over China through his personal ideology. Now it has got a political background, a political party, and they established a political party, and political party started to organize the ideology of their governments. Okay, as part of their ideas or their studies about China, they established 4 great needs, or they identified that the people of China, they had 4 great needs: food, clothing, housing, and transportation. These 4 were considered to be the great needs. Okay, after Sun Yat-sen, after the death of Sun Yat-sen, the authority or the leadership of Kuomintang Party was bestowed in a person called Chiang Kai-shek. And he tried to control the warlords. We said that the third principle of Sun Yat-sen, out of San Min Chui, socialism was not successful because of these warlords. So when Chiang Kai-shek became the leader of Kuomintang Party, he tried to control the warlords, and he tried to militarize the nation, and he even demanded the people to have a habit and instinct of unified behavior. He was a man who just wanted to see that Chinese people are behaving in a unified manner, and they are working for something in common. But the major problem is that the Kuomintang Party established themselves as a strong contender in urban areas, the rich and educated. In every society, majority belongs to the poor class, and they were clearly sidelined by Kuomintang Party. Okay, and by the time education was spreading, many universities were established before in 1902. One of the foremost universities, Peking University, was established in China. And like that, many universities and many education institutions were there, and people got educated. And education makes the people enlightened, and they will identify the problems of the people and identify the ill effects of the governance, and they will start raising their voice against the government. And it was happening when a government supports only the rich or only a particular class of people, the other class of people will arouse in revolt. And that exactly happening in China. And this time industrialization started in China, making a new class of society establishes, industrial workers. And their demands were never taken up by the Kuomintang Party. And they started their own, not the Kuomintang Party, but the industrial workers, they started to organize themselves in the trade unions. And these trade unions, they started demanding something because the working hours were long. And even the working conditions were it was very bad. So they started demanding the things. And at the same time, we need to discuss, or we need to say about the personal life of, or personal idea of Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek was a person who believed in a conservative ideology. A man who doesn't want to change with the time. He was completely a conservative. And he never experienced, or he never imagined that the equality of men and women, even though the people demanded for equality in marriages, he was against the idea of equality. And he even prescribed the length of the dress for the women. And he demanded the women to have the virtues. virtues of what to say, chastity, appearance, speech and work. So certain things were imposed on the people, and he just asked them to follow it precisely, and supported the owners of the factories. And when a government supports the factory owners, sure, they will be against the workers, and workers are more. A factory owner will be a single person, but there will be a large number of workers. So automatically the Kuomintang party and Chiang Kai-shek became the leader of a minority. And when a government becomes minority, what happens? The people will arise in revolt against the existing government in order to replace them. And that exactly happens. And here the people gets the support of another political party which was established along with the Kuomintang, that was Chinese Communist Party. And the Chinese Communist Party was led by a mercurial leader, Mao Zedong. So about the second phase of Chinese nationalism we will discuss in the next class. Okay, that's all.